Aslan's Rainbow, inspiration for transformation. Oh, yeah, and it's beginning, and this is the posture that we're going to come at it with. So, the posture of open hands to both give and receive. And sometimes things will just happen by themselves, but they're more welcome and more invited if we set the stage. So, we're going to set the stage so that magic can make an appearance today. And this is exactly how we're going to do that. We're going to make this a safe space where people can be authentic and chill and empathetic with each other. It's a place of synergy where we're more than the sum of our parts, and we need to hear from differing perspectives. So share the mic around if you notice you've been on it for quite a bit. And it's a place of solidarity. We're on the same mission here. So let's really try to hear the perspective of the other and speak the truth in love. Disagreements, they can be helpful, they can be cool, but only if done with respect. And everyone's welcome. If you've got a PhD, you're welcome. Learning disability, you're welcome. You live in La Jolla or you're homeless, you're welcome. Atheist or Amish, you're Buddhist, you're human, you're not even human, you're welcome. And we've even had non-human participants and possibly participants from the angelic kingdom make an appearance too. So who knows if that'll happen today. And yeah, we're broadcasting this exploration to the cosmos and to thousands of people so that they can see our material. Let's get this light out there. And so it's recorded and shared. We'll post our Zoom chat in text format afterwards on Facebook. And so if you have more thoughts that you want to add as we're talking, go ahead and put those in the chat and then continue the discussion on Facebook afterwards. This is how we're going to have our party today. What we're going to do is we're going to go counterclockwise around the room because we're a little out of the box here, a little countercultural. And when it's your turn, please tell us your name, something about yourself, and your topic title at this point that you'd like to bring to the table for mutual discussion. This could be anything that you found interesting recently. It could be to do with existence itself, to do with psychology, spirituality, art, creativity, science, entrepreneurship. You're also welcome to share art or a book or a song that you've been listening to. If it's a song that you've made, we'd love to listen to the whole thing. And if it's something that you've discovered or a video discovered, we'll listen to about a minute of that and then share our input on it. So when we're going around in this initial section, you just mention the topic title and you'll have a chance to elaborate on that later on. Once the virtual dice has been spun and we've used this power called randomness or synchronicity to decide which of the topics we're going to go on, because they're going to be put on this digital wheel, and when it lands on your turn, the time has come. You'll introduce your topic for up to 5 minutes and share your thoughts on it, and then we'll open up to the table for our collaborative group discussion so that something can emerge that's larger than the sum of our parts. So you ready for that? I'm ready for that. Let's go. Oh, yes, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. This is wonderful. Look at all these minds that have gathered to have this mutual experience. And I will kick us off and then we shall go counterclockwise as we do. That's how we roll. As the guys, Josh from South Africa, now living a version of a lucid dream. Sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's light. And something about myself is that something that I'm trying to integrate within myself at the moment, the dark and the light. Do I integrate it? Do I shun the dark? And so that leads to what I'm going to bring to the table. My topic today is evil and non-duality. Evil and non-duality. So I'm going to add that to the little colorful wheel, and we're going to go on to you, Anthony. Welcome, dude. I'm glad that you're here. Tell us a little something about yourself. And do you have a topic you want to bring to the table today?
Hi. My name's Anthony. I'm in Encinitas, California. And oh man, yeah, this was kind of spontaneous. There's a lot on my plate this weekend, but I had to jump in. So I hadn't had much time to mull over a topic of conversation. But yeah, I mean, I think what's kind of alive for me right now, based on some groups that I've been running in this clinic, and based on my own struggles and everything, is just this idea of mindset. There's the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset, and how we can break into a mindset of infinite possibility rather than live from a place of limitation. So there you go.
Or mindset. Well, that is all encompassing. We'll tap into a little dose of infinity today. Thanks, dude. Thanks for making the time to be here. It's really awesome to have you, man. I know that you're one who has explored that mindset of yours and come to some revelations, which I think can help a lot of people. So awesome, dude. Thanks for being here. Let's go on to you, Mr. Rick. Hello there, Mr. Rick. Can you please introduce yourself, say something about yourself, and do you have a topic for us today? He just appears out of nowhere. How do you do that, you magician?
Okay, it's my turn.
It's your turn to just introduce the topic, just something to put on the wheel. And when we come to the wheel landing on you, then we'll get deeper into what you got for us today.
Okay, my topic for the wheel is asking the right questions.
Asking the right questions. Wow, that's a question that you've just asked, and that's got us thinking. That's awesome. Thanks, Mr. Rick. And now we're going to come around to Grayson. How's it, bro? Welcome. And you got a topic for us? Tell us something about yourself.
Mic on.
Oh, here we go. I was muted. Can everyone hear me now?
Yeah, I was listening with my heart and with body language there. The verse of the day in
Perfect.
James is listen more than speak. So I thought you were embodying that.
Yeah, there we go.
Dude.
So my topic I'd like to discuss today is unknown unknowns and what, if anything, we can and should do about them.
Unknowns and what we should do about them.
Unknown unknowns.
Oh, the things that we don't even know. You don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I dig that, man. And there's a lot of unknowns at the moment, so gracias. Cool. Let's go around to you, Bree. Hello, Bree. Tell us something about yourself, and you got a topic for us today?
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's been, I think I've landed on one. I think I'll talk about social media. Is it good for us? Not good for us? Is it good for you? Let's talk about it.
Very important as we broadcast this from social media. Is this good for you? I'll tell you what, for today, it is good for you to be here. You should be here now, and then we'll decide later what you're going to do about that.
Exactly.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Bree. And then how's it, Tom? So good to see you as always, man. Tell us a little something about yourself and if you've got a topic for us today.
Morning, Josh. I'm in Escondido, originally from Ireland. I'm constantly confused, and I'm wondering if I'm meant to be. My topic is, are there any mistakes? Which is kind of the same topic as everyone else's, except maybe Bree's, I think. Are there really any mistakes at all? So there.
Oh, that's going to make me feel a lot better about myself if we come to the conclusion that they aren't any. Thanks, man, for making this sad. Well, we'll see. We don't know yet. We could explore that. That's awesome. Cool. Thanks, dude. Okay, so I think what we're going to do while I add these to our magnificent wheel is we'll start off with you, Rick. Would you mind please introducing your topic? You got up to 5 minutes to share. And Rick, I know that you got a little recitation that you'd like to share with us, and we'd be honored to hear it. So take it away, Rick.
Okay. So my topic was asking the right questions, because that topic came up immediately after I became enlightened. And that was like, I was about, I think, pretty close to just turning 28, or had just turned. And I was living in Stell, Illinois, which is an intentional New Age community. That I'd been with this group for 10 years. When I first started going to the building site, it was a cornfield. And now they have a city there, or a town. They call it a city. And I still have friends there. But a friend of mine, while I was there, he had bought a book written by Walter Russell called The Universal One. And everybody, all of his friends, immediately got online to borrow the book and read it after each other, you know. And by the time I got to the list, I was like, it'd be several months before I'd even see the thing. So I asked him, could I borrow it for half an hour? And I went and Xeroxed the entire book and got it home, and I tried to read it. And I kept getting stuck on the same page over and over. Page 57 kept stopping me, and it's like, what is this guy talking about? He sounded like he was chanting some kind of Tibetan prayer or something. I'm like, God is one, Om, God is, you know. I'm like, this is not like any book I've read, you know. And it's like, I kept getting stuck. So one morning I decided and kind of spoke it out loud so my guardian angel could hear it. I said, I'm gonna take this Xerox copy of this book to work every day, and at lunch I'm gonna read the same freaking page over and over and over again until I figured it out. And you know, took off, went to work. That lunch hour, went out to the truck, opened it up, and I go, here it goes. I'm gonna read this page again. And I read through it, and all of a sudden I got it. Oh my God, I got, you know, and I set, it was a bright day anyway. I set the book down on the passenger side, and I closed my eyes for a second. And when I opened my eyes, you know what an arc lamp is, like for floodlights on opening nights, they have always bright white. It's as bright as a torch. I mean, an arc welding spark. And this one was huge, and it was coming around the corner of the building, coming my direction. And the closer it got to the point where I'm thinking in my head, if this is real light, I'd be toast right now. So I looked down at my arm to make sure I wasn't frying any place, you know. And I realized I'm looking at the two bones in my lower arm, and I've seen the veins and arteries and stuff. Uh-oh. So, still on?
Still on, man. With the veins and arteries, we're there with you.
Yeah, I could see right through my arm, and then I realized, I guess this arm is made out of this same light that's going through it. And because of the extra light around, now I can notice that it's just more light, you know, compressed, however you want to call it. And I realized I'm in a place here somewhere in my mind. I'd gotten into a place where I was in the place where they kept all the answers to questions. And so the first question I get in my head was, so what do you want to know? And I said, well, nothing for me personally, but I would like to, you know, have some idea of how to tell other people how to get here. And at that point, from above and behind me, I could hear a voice saying, you are my son. Oh, wow. And then I looked down at my watch, all of a sudden, you know, it was turning to normal or something. And I noticed I still had a half a peanut butter sandwich, and I gobbled that down, and I walked into work, came in through the mechanic shop, and the first guy that sees me goes, Rick, what's with the big smile? And I didn't realize I was smiling. And I said, well, I just had lunch with God. And that smile stayed with me for like 2 days. It actually took me 20 years later, I actually wrote a song about it. We called it Incoming Light.
Pray tell, Rick, would you mind reciting some of that to us?
Oh, sure. I think we got it set up here to, hang on, get my cue card. Oh, I know, gotta do this. Oops, did I get it? There. Ready. in there somewhere.
And I could do a screenshot and display it to everyone as well if you wanted to do that and then read that off there. It's up to you.
I could copy it and put it in chat here, I guess. Will you do that?
Whatever you prefer, man.
All right, let's see. I'll go ahead and read it first. It's called Incoming Light. And it kind of goes good with like Simon and Garfunkel type music. It was a restful situation in the middle of the day. A smoke and a peanut butter sandwich, my book before me lay. The book had my attention. That book had ate my lunch. Because what the man was trying to say, I didn't have a hunch. I couldn't understand some words on this certain page. So I read them over and over again, like a madman on a rage. Then suddenly I got it. The truth had opened wide. I thought to give my eyes a rest and I set the book aside. But when my eyes reopened, it wasn't quite the same. The light was getting brighter in my direction. It came. The chorus is, incoming light, brighter than the sun. Incoming light, you and I are one. Incoming light, you called me son. The light kept getting brighter. I could see right through my hand. But the hand was made of the very same light. And now I understand. Then the blue sky rolled away and stars before me lay. But not just little points of light. They're all connected in a spirally kind of way. The answer to every question in this land could be found. But I asked nothing for myself except how to spread this news around. Then from somewhere up above, a heavenly voice did come. Imagine what it meant to me when it called me son. Incoming light, brighter than the sun. Incoming light, you and I are one. Incoming light, you called me son.
Boom, man, that's some good stuff right there.
Yeah, that
You
was
ready to
great,
open it up
Rick.
to the group? Yeah, the clicks, clickety click clicks.
Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, man. So you ready to open up to the group and their thoughts?
Pardon me?
Are you ready to open it up to the group and we hear from what are the thoughts of those of us at the round table?
Yeah, that's fine with me. It ties in with the question I asked too. I actually, regarding asking good questions, the point being, I do this with my students. If I get asked a question and I think, well, he's only ready for the basics, I'm not going to tell him how to, pull a rabbit out of a hat right off the bat, because he won't. You have to, masters and angels know that you have to learn this stuff for yourself. Nobody can just give you knowledge. So, I mean, if you want to become enlightened, the questions you should be asking are questions that only God knows the answer to. You ask enough of those, you'll get some pretty cool answers.
Whoa. Rick, thanks so much, really, for sharing that experience with us. And I can resonate on so many different levels, man. And how you artfully put that together is incredible. So yeah, let's open it up to you guys. What are your thoughts? What are your questions? Now you got to be careful of what questions you ask, but what are your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I really liked it. Where you were saying, my thought was like, seek and you will find, it says it in the Bible, and it's like, no one can seek for you. And I have my sister who knows, the Bible back and forth, but she wasn't able, even knowing, it's like experiencing that is a whole different thing. And so she's not able to understand what she knows because she hasn't seeked herself to find that. And yeah, those are my thoughts.
on piggybacking off of that, and sort of Rick, with what you were saying, with like everyone kind of has to learn it for themselves, and nobody can really explain these kinds of revelations. And Bree, exactly what you're talking about, there's a quote that I'm reminded of. If you meet the Buddha along the road, kill him. And you know who said that?
Buddha.
The Buddha, yeah.
It's like, geez, dude, got a death wish.
So it basically means like along the road is along the path to enlightenment, and meeting the Buddha along the road means like you meet a teacher along the road that wants to teach you how to get enlightened. And the Buddha himself said, if you meet the Buddha along the road, kill him.
That's so cool, man, and so paradoxical. And Tom, you posted something in the chat. Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, maybe. Carl Jung had his own extraordinary experiences, and he very modestly and humbly said that no matter how incredibly authentic they were to himself, and nothing could be more authentic, that it's, I don't know if he used the word arrogance, but he thought it was a presumption to share them with the world as though this is the truth because this is my truth. That every one of us has our own incredibly authentic experience, and the most authentic of them, the urge we get with the experiences, we must share this, must shout that from the rooftops. A lot of us, more of us think, keep quiet or they'll call me mad. But I was very delighted to recently stumble on this sentiment expressed by Jung. He struggled with this greatly, obviously, and he expresses it incredibly articulately. And the other thing about Rick's experience is that there's an extraordinary TED talk, which I've watched 50 to 100 times, by Jill Bolte Taylor, the Harvard-trained neuroanatomist, and hers incredible experience is very like Rick's in so many ways, even to seeing her arm as a primitive claw when the language centers in her brain shut down due to a ruptured AV anomaly, as she called it, arteriovenosus malformation, equivalent to a rupturing aneurysm. When the language centers weren't getting oxygen, her right side brain, as she explains it, and I'm not sure that she's absolutely correct scientifically or otherwise, her right side came on stream, and there were all the answers. She was one with the entire universe. She was one with God, and all the answers were there. She doesn't mention that her father was a pastor, by the way. And she drifted in and out of that. And at the end of it, she says, we all can. She suggests by standing to the right side of our cerebral hemisphere, we can be that peace and love and joy and light. And by standing to the left side, we can be the ego. She doesn't suggest, interestingly, that we can straddle both sides, which is what Eckhart Tolle maybe uniquely suggests, I think, is that we can keep that presence when we're in our day-to-day thinking, that we don't need to be one side or the other. We can sever the duality and be both, incorporate both. I'm sure that resonates with Jesus somewhere. Grayson, I loved what you said about meeting the Buddha. It's only after his resurrection, I think, that Jesus began to do a bit more, as far as we're told, listening. And when these two guys met him on the road to Emos, I think it was as well, after his resurrection, he didn't reveal himself to them. Apparently, he listened to them, and they told him all about the goings on in Jerusalem or wherever he'd been slaughtered. And it was only during the meal that he began to open up, and then they recognized who he was. So by remaining incognito, he kind of was the disguised Buddha. So maybe at that stage he had become the kind of Buddha that Buddha was, and realized it's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's about them realizing their own Buddha light. The last thought on that was, I met a businessman who said to me, an old businessman, he said to me one day, he knew I was in a state of distress at the time, I think, and he looked at me and he said, you know, I'm a self-made millionaire. I said, no, I didn't know that, Bill. He said, yeah, I never graduated high school, he said, so construction, he said, when a young man comes to me for work, he said, I have nothing to prove to him, and I have nothing to prove to me, and he's nothing to prove to me, but he has things to prove to himself. So he was saying what the Buddha said, it's not about me, it's all about him, kind of. And Jung got that too, I think. And Jill Bolte Taylor maybe too, I'm not sure. Rick, if you haven't seen that talk by Jill Bolte Taylor, I would love your take on it. It's so similar to yours when she had her stroke. That's it.
Yeah, Of that one. Yeah, there's some fusions of Eastern Western thought, neuroscientific thought. Good stuff there, Tom. Who else has some thoughts about this topic of Rick's?
Yeah, thanks for all the shares. Tom, I definitely second that Jill Bolte Taylor talk in her book. If you have an opportunity to read it, it's kind of an incredible like neurophysiological description of how, I don't know, at least glimpses, insight experiences might occur, maybe when the default mode goes offline or whatever. But regardless of all that stuff, I'm endlessly fascinated about that experience, and I'm super just psyched to hear about yours, Rick. That's like, and how spontaneous it occurred, and how just the right combination, like it's like all the causes and conditions came together in the relationship to those teachings that were, kind of Xeroxed on those pages, and it flipped that switch. That's it's, I don't know like how and when and why that happens, but I ponder this question a lot while just sharing meditation instruction with, I mentioned a clinic that I'm working in and with a lot of people in recovery and, new meditators. And you mentioned, Rick, with your students, you can kind of plant a seed, but that's about all you can do. You can put a seed into the fertile bed of consciousness, and what happens from there is it's up to the causes and conditions that are in that fertile bed. And we can't necessarily teach anyone anything, which is good news. That's actually really good news, because it all has to come from within, and it all has to come from the totality of kind of who we are as one thing. But yeah, I really appreciate all those perspectives. So thanks.
Me too, man. Let's come back to you, Rick, for any final thoughts on this topic of asking the right questions.
This, other than it's something that whenever I'm in communication, and I have connections, people, friends all over the world thanks to the internet, and anytime I say anything to anybody, I've got to think of how is he or she going to hear this? If I say these words, what words are they going to be hearing? Because everybody's got these little filters on, these tints, these colored lenses and whatnot in front of their eyes, and they're always going to be projecting something on you. Oh, he doesn't really mean this. He's really wanting to cause trouble or whatever. You have to consider not only how is the person you're talking to going to receive it, but how is he going to pass it on to others? How is your reputation going to get worse on secondhand, hearsay from him? So you constantly have to be editing yourself, in your own imagination, have like some little secretary that's watching over your shoulder to make sure you don't say anything. And even at your best, you're still gonna offend somebody somewhere. Sometimes it's just because you know more about it than they do. They hate that.
I'm just saying, yeah, if we got that little secretary in our mind, then I should fire mine, because she's messed up and made me say stuff that I shouldn't be saying so many times. But that's really cool, Rick. There's actually so many levels there. And that helps me personally in my walk right now, because I'm trying to look for all the enlightened people and why they aren't just giving me the answers. And what you're revealing is that, well, they can plant the seeds, but it really needs to come from within. So thanks, Rick. Thanks for the topic. I think it's really profound. Now let's move on and spin our colorful wheel, shall we? Let's see what else randomness and synchronicity have for us today. Boom. I would like to thank my mom for raising me, for stacking the odds in my favor. Thank you. I win. Okay, cool. Okay, so the topic of evil and non-duality. Yeah, I've actually been thinking about this since a couple of my friends shared things with me that I've been trying to reconcile. It's really brought things to a head between the Eastern and Western worldviews, I think, because I was thinking, oh, everything's non-dual, and evil is really just the shadow side of the light, and where there's light, there has to be dark, and these kinds of things. Until I realized, wait a minute, the Bible says we're not supposed to embrace the dark at all. And when Jesus was confronted with Satan in the desert, he wouldn't even really talk to him except quote scripture. And it says, resist the devil and he'll flee with you. So I'm like, oh, wait, is it much more clear cut than I'm thinking? I was a big fan of Carl Jung. I am a big fan of Carl Jung and the depth psychological approach in which the darkness, even the darkness that comes up in Halloween, is the shadow self that needs to find healthy expression. Otherwise, it just gets pushed under the surface of the water like a ball. It's going to pop up somewhere else. So I don't quite know what to do with it. I've had experiences of the dark, which I shared as my topic in the last gathering about demons. And at that point, it was kind of my belief in non-duality that allowed me to embrace the side and say, hey, well, this is who you are. You got to give expression to some of these aspects of yourself. But I'm also seeing that kind of thing emerge within society. I know that Will Smith and his wife entered into an open relationship recently, and he cites Christianity as the reason why he was unable to do that before. He said, well, because of my Christian upbringing, when I had these sexual thoughts about, say, Halle Berry, I used to press it down and say, no, I can't be thinking these things. But now he's working with, I guess, a relational sexual coach who's saying, no, this is who you are, man. Set all this stuff free. And so he's entered into an open relationship with Jada. And I'm just trying to think, is this the way that things are meant to go, where things are supposed to emerge and find different expression? Or was there some value in that Christian thing of don't even mess with this force, because if you engage with it too much, it's like the sirens in Greek mythology that'll hypnotize you and lure you into shipwrecks, what ends up being shipwrecks for the sailors. So I don't quite know. Are things non-dual on a higher level? I wouldn't be surprised if they are. It makes sense to me that we break things into categories, and every category kind of needs to have an opposite category to exist. But yet, even if they are on a higher dimension, are we supposed to embrace non-duality in this 3D, 4D physical existence? Or what do we do with this topic of evil? So those are my thoughts. And also welcome, Sergey. Good to have you here, dude. What do you guys think about this topic of evil and non-duality?
Hi guys.
How's it, bro?
Doing good. Yeah, sorry I'm a little late. There was a chance to chat with my parents today, so didn't want to pass on the opportunity, but here I am, and it sounds like a really fascinating topic. I was actually thinking about it with the evil part. I don't know if I can add something right away. I need to think about it. That's cool one to think how it fits into this question. But interestingly, the duality was a topic of some conversations I had recently with a friend of mine who is in Europe at the moment. We used to work together, and he like sent me like a drunken message once saying, hey, dude, imagine you can like represent your life as a sequence of experiences, and then he wanted to do stuff with that vector, or like look at different vectors that represent different possible lives. But I had the question, can you actually do that? Can you think of experiences as like discrete events, which I think this is exactly this non-duality stuff. Like you have this flow of data coming at you, which is just like continuous, continuous stuff. Like you, then you yourself like discretize things into objects. Like we like single out things and call them out by name. So like, let's say an apple, right? Like when you're holding an apple in your hand, it's you can have a neuronal network that can recognize apple from the image, and we have that going. Also, we have the visual picture coming in, but we also combine that with like perception of the weight and the shape and the texture, and all of this somehow in our head is combined into experience of an apple. And in this experience of a particular object, it is the whole kind of flow of information coming at you in that given moment. It is discretized in a way, and we single out the object. So here we are. We started with just a continuous flow of information in all modalities, and then we were able to have an actual object. So to me, this is very similar to the my naive understanding of just the field theory. This is how people think of particles, right? So you have the wave, that kind of like probability of a particle being in some state, and then you like actualize it into a specific state. When you're looking at it, you discretize it. But to me, this is also the thing about everything in life. It's not just the measurements of individual particles. I just gave you the example of an apple, but like, yeah, maybe even it comes to just categorizing things into good or bad. Like there's just this continuum of stuff, and it's really in our somehow in our observer, in our consciousness, they somehow like combinations of different modalities like take shape into one object that could be quite complex. So yeah, I think the answer, like, can you discretize things? It's like, yes, if it's useful, and no, if you want to like think at like a deeper underlying level of what's going on, then things are not really discreted out. So yeah, it was a little bit of just a free flow with you guys. Sorry, I didn't have like a very formulated answer to the evil part, but that's some thoughts.
Oh, yeah,
No,
I
that
got
was
some
good,
good stuff out of that.
Sergey.
Yeah.
Sorry, Josh. I was just gonna say that was, I think, a good explanation about trying to like categorize things and like the continuous nature of reality. If I could just piggyback off of that with the evil part, I just have a couple clarifying questions for Josh, because I don't know if this is maybe a product of like a Christian outlook of the world, or maybe if this is a function of like individual personalities or individual desires. But in my personal understanding of my life and myself, I really don't feel like I have any desires that I would label as dark or evil. And I'm not sure if that's because I don't have the Christian background or outlook of like the concept of sins or sinful thoughts or behaviors or things. I mean, the thing that I would say is the only thing in my personal life that I would feel desire, or I feel like is something I do that I don't like, is maybe like being lazy at times, or like not wanting to do, being lazy, I think, is one of my bigger vices. And like, other than that, I mean, like, I don't necessarily judge any of my desires or actions as dark or evil, or like, and the whole concept that Josh was bringing up about, letting out this shadow self or whatever, because you have to give it a little breadcrumbs, or else it's going to be pent up or whatever. I'm thinking about different acts that I would consider dark or evil. Like, let's just go with the easy one, murder. I don't ever feel the desire of just like maybe a little bit of murder just to make sure I don't actually kill somebody. Maybe I'll go kill a couple ants. I don't feel any desire for such things. I mean, I don't feel any desire for, most of these really big things that I would consider evil or bad. Like, again, I wouldn't really consider non-monogamy to be evil or bad as long as it's consensual within the relationship. So again, a lot of these might just be different frameworks for thinking about these behaviors, but I would want a little bit of like, I'm not asking you to like personally vent about, like your own struggles here, but like maybe like things that I'm just trying to figure out how to conceptualize this in like my own everyday life, I guess, because it's sort of a alien or foreign topic to my own thinking.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, man. I've never felt inclined to just murder someone a little bit. Well, if I just kill them a little bit. Okay, well, you see, this is how it started with me, is that when I had this experience, call it bipolar, triggered by weed, initially, I had all this light revelation. I was like, oh, everything is basically, it's just my mind imposing these constructs on this objective kind of wave state like Sergey was describing. I'm like, so in that case, I can impose the constructs in whatever form I like. And so I did. And it actually led to, I feel like, objective reality shimmering and glistening and reforming. And in the beginning, I was like, wow, dude, I got the power. And at the time, I didn't really think about it, but come to think about it, Jesus was faced with that same revelation in the desert. Satan was like, dude, you can reformulate this rock into a stone. And if you jumped off here, you could fly. Of course you can. It's all a construct of your mind. And then ultimately, if you bow down and worship me, you can have power. You can imagine what you could do with this. So I was intrigued. I was enticed in terms of actually really those three things, being able to manifest reality. And initially it was great. People were responding really well. And then they reached a point where I was so hypnotized by this that full-on evil got downloaded into my mind. I mean, according to really society standards, this stuff was dark and it didn't come from me, in the same way that like when I'm falling asleep, there's something that comes up into my mind that, wait, that's not me. So these higher dimensional downloads started taking on an objectively evil, I guess we can't say objectively, a subjectively evil demeanor. And I was so hypnotized that actually seemed like the best thing to do. Light was the opposite. Dark was actually the most concentrated form of light. Now that I've come completely out of that and I'm re-immersed in consensual waking reality, I feel like I've gone back to sleep for the good of myself for now and for everyone around me. When I look back, I'm like, no, dude, of course that was evil. How does this work? What I took from Sergey's is, well, is there a usefulness to this? Is there, we can judge a tree by its fruit. So those are kind of a little bit of elaboration there, Grayson, if that helps at all. What about the rest of you guys? Do you have any thoughts about that? I know you posted something in chat there. Oh, Anthony, go for it.
I'm just really curious about that that increase in power, that desire for power, and how, whether looked at from like a biblical standpoint, or I guess even from like a bit of a non-dual standpoint. I mean, I had a bit of a similar experience years ago after a DMT, hyperspace blast off, in which it felt very, very like it wasn't cool. It was like solipsistic, if I'm pronouncing that right. Almost as if like, I am the omega point and everything else is kind of, not being manipulated by my will, but just almost like constructed, as a result of my will, which is which may arguably be true. It may be, just all kind of a piecing together of consciousness filtered through kind of the antenna of our brain, offering up this movie that we call reality. But it wasn't cool to feel as if I was the center of it, if that makes sense. Like in other words, that power made me extraordinarily uncomfortable. And it wasn't until like a little while later, incidentally, after a San Pedro experience. This was during a period of kind of concentrated exploration into those medicines, that I had this shift in perspective that it's like no, it's not
you, like it's not me, it's us, it's everything and everyone collaborating simultaneously under the illusion that we are not all the same thing. You know, like that's the game, is that we're all kind of like blown apart into the giving the impression that we're, you know, individualistic, whereas we're all just kind of little nodes of this, the same thing, kind of having its own individual experiences, and each one has the exact same kind of status on the hierarchy or whatever, if you want to call it that. So that to me was like extremely comforting, and it was actually a pleasure to surrender my power. It was a pleasure to be like, okay, cool, like this power is ours. It's not mine, it's ours. And, you know, and I can't help but wonder how much of that comes down to looking at it from kind of a depth or just more of a psychological, not even necessarily depth psychological viewpoint, but how much of that, you know, comes down to things like conditioning and things like how we were raised to believe, you know, in the possibility of, you know, different levels of power existing through either like a good and evil, you know, not just Christian, but like a good and evil framework, or more of like I don't know, I guess if one was raised like with a Buddhist framework, if one was raised with just a completely agnostic, just like what we don't know what the fuck is going on framework, which was how it was in my case. There are more questions than answers here for sure. But I find that question of power and the desire for power and the like, you know, the kind of, oh man, like it's tasty, like it's really tasty. But you know, depending on one's maybe subjective framework, there can be a lot of different reactions to like what that feels like. I hope that made a tiny bit of sense, but if not, that's cool.
So much sense, man. Yeah. It's actually, we gain power when we surrender it to the larger whole. I like that. It's not solipsistic.
Just really quickly, Bria, I know that you wanted to share on this. I don't want to take up too much time. I know I already talked, but just after I heard that, and Anthony, you explained that, and Josh, you kind of clarify some of the answers. I really don't know how much I have to add on this, but I just think of maybe there is a little bit of a useful analogy, because Josh, it sounds like I don't know, this might help in a certain way, because there's a sort of idea of like just accepting whoever we are, no matter what that is, versus this idea of, hold on, like what if I don't like certain parts of myself, or would like to change parts of myself. And I just think that like we do this all the time, and it's like nowadays culturally we're getting a lot more messaging of just like accept whoever you are, and whatever that means, whatever you're feeling, it's valid, it's real, embrace it. But you know, I kind of, I'll use two analogies here, and then hopefully by the second analogy it will make sense. But if you're born with bad vision, you get glasses to correct it. You don't just accept your poor vision, you correct it. And to someone that's like born, or you know, we don't really understand this, but for someone that's dealing with the desire to kill people like Dexter, or someone that's dealing with it like someone who is like sexually attracted to children, like I don't think that that's necessarily a choice that they made to feel that way. That's just a shitty part of their life that they have to figure out how to deal with that feeling of desire that they have. But like that doesn't mean that just because that desire, or like sexual attraction to children, that does not mean that that's right. Just because they're feeling it, that is something that I don't know if it can be corrected as like something like vision, but that's something that they need to work through, and that is not an okay thing to express, even if it is a part of themselves. That's like, I'm not saying they have to suppress it, but they have to work through it. Just like you don't just suppress bad vision. If you have bad vision, there's no suppressing your bad vision to get better. You need to correct it with glasses or with LASIK, or you have to address it and move through it and treat it in order to get back to 2020. You know what I mean?
Yeah, those are really helpful metaphors. And so I guess it's like, well, then what falls into which category? What desire of ourselves falls into the, that's cool self-expression and what actually needs to be corrected. Bree, do you have anything you want to say to this? I don't want to take up too much time on my topic. We'll move on to the next one.
I just really like all of this. And my thoughts are, I believe that we are in a physical and spiritual world. I think there's spiritual darkness. And it's interesting, it takes me back to when the Bible says, I think the disciples asked Jesus, is this man blind because of his ancestors? Or I don't know if that's the right story or not, but they're the lineage where this darkness can travel from and into you. It could be like generational curses that have been on you that, and I think it goes back to the root. It's like, who are we? Back to your foundations about like everything that goes on in the world of open relationships and like, who are you and what are you building off of? Who are you? And I think once you figure that out, you can build. And just judging the tree by its fruits and why are we here? And does this spirit align with who you are and your values? And, it's just, you got to ask that question so you can start building. For me, I definitely know there's a darkness in the world. And that's just my personal opinion. But there's so much more to say and I can talk all day about it, but that's all my thoughts for now.
Love it, Bree. Thanks. Tom?
I was intrigued by what Grayson said. I think it's extraordinarily useful, and I'm so glad whenever I see his face show up here, especially as some people here might be classed as call themselves Jesus freaks, and Grayson so obviously isn't. I think he hit on something incredibly important. When you make something a no-no, you make a big deal of it, it becomes a big deal. I often think if you went to a new employer and he said, Tom, great to have you here, but no fornicating with the boss's wife, no stealing, no texting on boss's time and stuff, you'd think, wow, who do they think I am? I'm not sure I want to work for these guys. You arrive in a Judeo-Christian culture and they say, here, innocent child, here are the 10 commandments. You think, and how do you covet? And it gives you all kinds of horrible ideas that you never had before. Not only that, which is okay because it's meant to be. I worked as a veterinarian in Ireland. One day I forgot my gun for putting huge bullets down cows' throats. So I thought, okay, they don't have top teeth, they have back teeth. But I just took the boluses, and I'm not going to travel 30 miles home and get the gun. I took the boluses and I started pushing them down the cows' throats, no problem. A neighboring farmer came along and he said, Jesus Christ, oh Jesus, that's a terrible, dangerous thing to be doing. Jesus Christ, you get the hand cut off you. And I thought the man's an idiot. But I was still infected by his foolishness and his fear. And suddenly all the cows began to bite me. Once the doubt got in, I began to make mistakes. It's the same with children. You say, hey, you've reached the age of reason now. Instead of us adults trying to be innocent like you and joyful and trusting, you're going to become like us. You could do terrible wrong and it could go horribly wrong. Why? Because Satan is a real dangerous force and he's contrary to God, and it could go horribly, irrevocably, eternally wrong for you, we tell the little children. And bless their hearts, in Judeo-Christian cultures, they believe it's Grayson and they don't always escape like you do. I've often said, Grayson, about your laziness, that there can't be any such thing as laziness, because if there were, there would be sin, and there can't be. So laziness, obviously, as you know very well, Grayson, is simply lack of motivation. And if you're not motivated, you're not motivated and you won't do it. And there ain't nothing wrong with not being motivated to do what you're not motivated to do. Otherwise, there would be sin, right? If you really want to get up and become Mr. Universe, you get up and do it. If you want to become Lance Armstrong, you'd get up and do it. You don't. That's okay. Otherwise,
phenomenally well
Grayson.
said.
I'm so glad you're here, Grayson, that you're too lazy to get up and leave us. I'm so glad.
It's a win for us all. Yes, thank you, Lord, for laziness. Cool, Tom. And I think there's going to be more chance for you to talk about this can we make mistakes thing in your topic. I think it's really important. I think it has a lot of practical benefit, this topic. So guys, thank you for all your insight. I think it's profound. Let's spin this wheel, shall we? Congratulations, Bree, it's you. We're talking about social media.
Oh, you just went to Scotland.
Actually, I was trying to be a bit Irish, and so
Oh,
I obviously
darn.
need to work on it.
Oh,
Go for it.
man.
All right, take it away.
Oh, okay, now we're pirates.
Of course we are.
Okay, first off, I just want to say, proud to be a Jesus freak.
Woot, woot.
Woot.
I love all the blend of people here.
Yeah, and I mean, we all can learn from each other, and that's why we're here. And also, I wanted to say, I don't know, light can cast out darkness. If at one point you ever think darkness is there, yeah, I definitely believe that can happen. Anyways, so I want to read a Bible verse. You could mute me or go get some coffee if you don't want to listen, but I just wanted to share it. In Matthew 6, it says, treasures in heaven. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. With that said, it's going to lead me into social media. I think that it's such a, I'm still wrapping my head around just how fast society has sped up from the 90s, good old 90s punk rock and pop, and, you know, with your overalls, and just such a, just a slow, the technology wasn't all there in your face every, you know, 24/7. And so if you guys remember the dial-up, you know, we had, you know, it was slower then. And I feel like even if you're not addicted to social media, like I have been, I have a love and hate relationship. Josh has my password because I am addicted to Facebook, and I do nothing there, and it wastes so much of my time, and I end up coming out of it way worse than I went into it. I get nothing out of it. Or, I mean, I get some things, but they're not good things. And that's been my experience. Or just having the phone. Like, how has technology impacted you? Do you see that yourself being more addicted to your phones? Do you see yourself being on social media, just mindlessly scrolling? What are your thoughts on that? I guess it's just, Josh was talking to somebody who did a study about, I guess, women. I don't know how men are. I'm the only girl here, but we think a lot, overthink things. And, you know, you hear the stereotype, oh, crazy is what girls get labeled. You're like, oh, you have that crazy girlfriend, or you have that crazy wife, because it's just how much we think and processing and stuff. But so I don't know if you men, I guess, have trouble with social media, or do you guys like it? What are your thoughts on it? I guess I don't really have a clear question, but, or statement or anything, but I guess that's my question. I guess I do have a question.
It's perfect.
I'll just chime in real quick. I had a kind of mixed relationship to it, and all the stories about why I should be doing it and all the justifications and everything, until I actually read a really kind of not horrifying, but it was a worrisome kind of description of how the algorithms work in a book called Team Human by Douglas Rushkoff. Excellent book if you get a chance to read it. And it just really got me thinking about how my consciousness was being colonized by those algorithms. And like, it really did feel like some type of, you know, like, oh yeah, like there's some type of intruder, there's some type of spirit, some type of something that's you know, colonizing my consciousness, and that I would rather not. You know, I would rather have the greatest degree of autonomy, conscious autonomy as possible, if that's even possible. But that was what really kind of got me kind of working on it. And among the ways to work on it, it sounds weird, but learn how to make your phone black and white. You can go into the settings and you can take all the color out of your phone. And it, you know, what it does is like gets into your dopaminergic, if I can pronounce that, system. That's kind of like, yeah, that's it. There you go. Thank you. that's evolutionarily designed to kind of seek out the bright colors because it could, you know, differentiate between like the tasty berries that were buried way down in the bushes or whatever, and kind of keep your, you know, keep your body, keep your blood sugar levels up and keep your body going for a little longer. It's the same fucking thing that, you know, the geniuses in smartphone technology have kind of done with a lot of the color schemes on the phones. So you can kind of hack that little evolutionary conscious mechanism by just fucking making the thing black and white really easy. And then little things like that, you know, kind of minimizing the little dopamine hits that we get from the likes and the dislikes and the ways in which the algorithms are working on us. And it's no, you know, with all compassion for that, you know, it's not your fault. It's no one's, you know, it's no one's fault that we get addicted to these things. That's precisely what they're designed to do. So, you know, it just feels kind of empowering to kind of, you know, leverage something in the other direction. And yeah.
Brilliant.
I
Thanks, Steve.
will say, just last week I deleted my social medias, and I made it maybe like a day and a half without Instagram and maybe 4 days without Facebook. So I piecemeal brought them back, but it was interesting because I really could not consciously describe why I deleted them. It was just like it was like at 2 or 3 in the morning, and I was frustrated because I was trying to fall asleep and I couldn't fall asleep. And I know that being on your phone with all that artificial light late at night is going to keep you awake. But then I was just lying in bed and I'm super bored and I can't go to sleep. And then I'm like, okay, I'll just find something to listen to. And then I'm on my phone, and then I'm like, people are messaging me and I'm messaging back, and it's getting later and later at night. And I'm just getting more frustrated because I'm like, I'm missing out on my sleep. And I just got frustrated to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't want anybody to contact me. I don't want to see any of this. I'm going to go to sleep. And I just deleted all my social medias, like put my phone down and went to sleep, and sat there not falling asleep for a while, and eventually did. And then the next morning was like, I mean, I kind of want to talk to my friends on social media, but such a hassle, part of that laziness of re-downloading all of my social medias. So I like held out, and it was interesting to see what was drawing me back, because honestly, like, I'm not proud to admit this, but I would assume that I probably have one of the higher tiers of hours of social media in this group right now. And like, yeah, but Bree, you say you're addicted, but if Josh has your password, I'm gonna bet that I could top you on pure hours spent on social media right here. And like, the thing that brought me back, yeah, exactly, I'm very proud. You know, so the thing that mostly brought me back was just sheer boredom. I mean, you know, I was like, you know, I've got a ton of books that I'm, you know, some semblance of like progress through, but I didn't really feel like reading any of them. I mean, that was like a whole story to jump into. It was a whole thing, and I just wanted like a quick little blurb, something to grab my attention, something to learn, like a little factoid or something. I wanted to see a meme and share it with my friends and have a laugh, or have my friends send me a meme, and I just was just bored, frankly. I mean, it's just like that. There's a certain degree of just, I mean, not even just addicted with, I mean, Anthony was right. I mean, these social media apps are designed ingeniously to get you addicted to them, but even beyond just addicted to certain like apps, with what Bree was saying with like the fast-paced lifestyle now, I mean, that's in itself is addicting. I mean, Anthony seems like he has experience with meditation. It's hard to just sit there and do nothing. I mean,
talk about a long time with social media on the computer. When I went to high school, I was one of only 4 people that could use the only computer in the whole school. And we used to get on there after school, and we used to social media with the guys downtown in the college. And that's when you'd have to pick up a telephone, dial their number, and then put the handset in a cradle that would connect it to the computer. And if you type out a question, you'd have to wait for the computer, and then if you wanted to see what they were saying, it would print out on a printer with a continuous roll of paper. So you could get a whole book reply, and it just keep on printing. That's that's back in the days.
You pioneer. Look at you, Rick. You're ahead of all of us, man.
Okay, and my last thoughts.
Oh, can I add something here?
Oh yeah. I just
Yeah.
wanted to kind of
Please.
keep it going because I don't want to spend too much time on myself.
Yeah.
No, we actually got
so-
time. We got 3 more topics. We're good.
Yeah, so definitely addictive stuff, for sure. And I heard that like scrolling the feed is like I like to like playing the roulette, and like those things are just, you don't know what it is, and boom, it shows you. It's like, oh, okay, the next one, not so good. Oh, this one is like 777. I'm gonna like it and repost it, and like, so you're like anticipating something, and that's really where we get the kick from. And this is what you can addicted from, like seeing what this will like reveal to you, like as you're scrolling that feed, what will you find. Recently I saw or heard, I forgot, but I remember that in one country, I think in Europe, they are treating people from addiction to cryptocurrency. So there is a lot of people who just compelled to always be checking the price of crypto. So I can relate to this. Like a few times when I now like lowered a whole ton my investment into crypto, when I had more money in it, you kind of just want to be checking it all the time. And like just open it. Oh, change.
Yeah, be right back. I gotta go check.
Yeah.
That's cured as laziness. Okay, I gotta go.
So yeah, for sure, it's like total addiction. I don't know what exactly we're getting addicted to. I think maybe this anticipation and reveal. Yeah, I definitely like all of the suggestions here for ridding yourself of this addiction, freeing your consciousness from it. I myself feel like I'm not addicted, so I don't have the Instagram account, I don't have the Facebook on my phone. Sometimes I check Twitter, but they're like, it comes and goes in me. I had times when I was spending way more time on it, and maybe I'll come back to it, but I definitely relate, and it's definitely the addiction, like same pathways.
Yeah, the roulette thing, I like that. Tom, did you have anything you wanted to say about this topic? Maybe we'll come to Bree for a final thought.
Thanks, Bree. You said turn darkness to light, Bree. The social media are a tremendous opportunity for that. I find if someone dislikes and disagrees with me and criticizes, and I feel hurt, I think, oh wow, that hurt is obviously ego. That's God paying attention to some little part of me. One, it's just a name on a page. Why should I care so much about what they say, and so on. It really does reveal a lot of our ego, and there's only so much of that, and when it's all brought to light, presumably that's the end of it. The other wonderful thing I find about it, Bree, is that we think we love people, and someone says something pejorative about us and demeaning and ridiculing us, and we think, well, I don't love them, I love the others, which is revealing. But perhaps most of all, my younger sister had a big poster on her wall as a teenager. It said, I'm allergic to cheerful people in the morning, which was fair warning. If you go on social media and you say you're a Jesus freak, and I think that's wonderful, by the way, nothing wrong with that. And especially when people call themselves Jesus freaks, so much better. If you say you're sweetness and light, by gum, you'll find people who will say, let's just see, honey. And they'll kick you somewhere sensitive, and they'll gouge your eyes, and they'll say, now spit at me, spit at me, spit at me. And you'll be inclined to spit at them if you're human. And you'll say, oh, wow, how loving am I? And the extraordinary thing is that what a wonderful opportunity and exercise to turn their darkness to light and to say, okay, I hate them. I really dislike them and all they say, and I hate how they've made me feel. But God, could you help me love them, please? Or would that be too much to expect, to turn their darkness to light? And guess what God says every time, Bree? You know what God says. And the same with the addiction itself. You say to God, hey, I've got this addiction that's controlling me. and I want to stop it, like Augustine, but tomorrow, you know, if you really say, whatever God, you know, your God will say, okay, Brie, I like your attitude. I found one extraordinarily funny thing that sometimes when I go into a situation, and it could be just making a joke with someone, a checkout clerk, and I say, okay, God, could you please, I know it's a big ask, God, but could you just help me to leave my ego out of this just for a moment, please, God? And God says, it's hard, Tom, but I'll try. You know what happens funny? Sometimes something extraordinarily funny happens at the checkout. The joke goes totally pie-shaped and wrong, but it's 10 times more hilarious than I thought. And afterwards, God says, and here's something for your ego too, Tom. You say, oh, thanks, God. And you say, it's so friggin' funny that God knows me better than I know myself. And it's a bit like that wonderful phrase, the second part of it, seek first the kingdom and all else will be given to you. As soon as you say, just leave me out of it, something says, okay, well, here's something for you anyway. But you have to really mean it. I mean, that's the irony of being a human. If you're not afraid, it's all good. How do you not be afraid?
Love it, dude.
So
There you go,
when
Nick.
you're annoyed by people on social media, say, thanks God, wonderful opportunity, got to love them. And love them, and it really confuses them. But that's why they crucified Jesus, to say, okay, we'll crucify the bastard and see if he still forgives us. And lo and behold, he did. Enough said.
Woot woot. You want to round us out, Brie?
Yeah, thought-provoking stuff. Thank you for that, Tom. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I was thinking, like, social media is like, is it really what we are seeing? Is it really, you know, the perfect family pictures and this and that? It's like, how much are we seeing is actually true? And it's just, it feels like we're walking into an illusion, like a place where just things evolve and stories are being told, but it's not the truth. And I don't know, it's a realm that is very tricky. I feel like not well understood, and it's like a circus in a way. But yeah, those are just my final thoughts. Thanks everyone for sharing. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Awesome. Love it. Yeah, thanks, Brie. I think it's really important. It is a circus and it's a new one, and they are hijacking our system. So it's important to bring awareness to it. So let us use social media to now talk about meaningful things, shall we? We're going to hijack
if you
that
guys have
dark and
a
turn
problem
that
with
to
social
light.
media, please call this number.
That all right. 1-800, you're just like everybody else. Anthony, can you talk to us about mindsets, por favor?
Yeah, sure. I will. You know, I'll share what I can. So I've been reading the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. She's a Stanford psychologist, and she's got a few like really cool TED Talks as well. But so I work in the recovery community, and I was bringing this to some groups the other day because I feel like it's so relevant to particularly people in early recovery, but I would say to just about everybody in this culture, and maybe worldwide. I mean, this might be part of humanness. But the real basic idea is the fixed mindset, which is the belief in, that has been conditioned within us that intelligence is static, abilities are static. You're either born talented or you're born, untalented. You're born gifted to like a particular skill, like, the brilliant musicians are born that way, born with a guitar in your hands or whatever. You fill in the blank. It goes and goes and goes. And then, so we believe these stories as we're growing up, and they're, the kind of response reward type thing that we get, from our caregivers and teachers and everything just keeps reinforcing those beliefs. And so then we are unable to essentially like push ourselves into new paradigms of thought, or forget trying new things, forget like learning a new instrument or a language or something at age 42 or whatever. really conditioned into like rigid paradigms of thinking that we feel, oh, I'm just this way. This is just how I'm just an anxious person. Like I'm just, you know, what, again, you know, this can manifest in a million different ways. Whereas the growth mindset is kind of the opposite of that. It's one that, you know, really acknowledges neuroplasticity, if you want to look at it through the neuroscience lens, or just the ability to, you know, through more of like a spiritual or even, you know, pseudo psychedelic lens or something, that kind of like going back to the beginning of our conversation, like one of the first topic, that like really anything is possible. And I'm not just saying that like in some Pollyanna way, like, yay, like you can do anything, but like really within relative reality, within the boundaries of, let's say, physics, and even that's maybe arguable in certain states of consciousness, but like anything's possible. We can do anything. We can do anything, and we can learn to adopt that mindset. We can learn to adopt the growth mindset, in which like even like aspects of our personality that have therefore up until then been concrete, you know, been, oh, this is just me, all bullshit, or like all at least subject to change, and to at the very least like experimentation. So I could keep like rambling on and on about what it is, but I'm really curious as to like how others have, you know, pushed like run into those boundaries, run into your fixed mindset, and then maybe ways in which people have transcended that, ways in which people have pushed through. And it could be something small, or it could be something like really large. But yeah, I think that on the spiritual path, we're continually brought to you know, brought into that, brought to that edge. Yeah. And then, you know, of course, in consensus reality, every single day offers an opportunity to do that. I'm teaching myself how to touch type at age 43. And I'm like fixed mindset like a motherfucker here. Like I've been at it for like a month, and I'm like, I should get this. I'm still at like 15 words a minute and like making all these mistakes. And there's a part of me that just like wants to throw in the towel and go back to this. But I'm like, no way, man. Growth mindset, this stuff. Like you got it. It might take me a year, but neuroplasticity is real, and we can remake ourselves into any way in which we can imagine. So I don't know if there are thoughts on that, or ways in which people have pushed through.
Okay. Yeah, Anthony, I absolutely adore this topic. I think like this is super relevant in things that I've been observing recently, and things that have happened to me in the past too. And I think it's a really immensely powerful topic for people, like knowing how powerful your own mindset is, and knowing that you have the ability to change it to a degree. I don't know if I fully go as far as you as saying anything's possible. And you know, I recognize, at least, you know, from a physical lens, I think there are limits to neuroplasticity, and we don't all start at the blank slate. And like some people are better at others. Some people are more predisposed to having more fixed mindsets than other people are more open and fluid with their mindsets. But I just would like to share two specific things, one of them very light and one of them very heavy, that happened to me that pertain to this. So I guess I'll start with the light one. So in college, right, I had horribly slobby roommates. Like they would leave food out everywhere. They were really trashy, and like, you know, I liked them, they're my friends, but they were slobs. And I hated it because I didn't like living that way. And I, being in the same house, had to deal with the repercussions of their messes, meaning bugs, flies. And I hate flies. And there were all these flies that would come into my room, and I would never leave food out in my room. There was nothing for them there, but they would come in and they would get stuck in my room because they would go underneath the door, following the light from the window. And then I would come home from classes, and there would be you know, 5 flies or more on my window, and it would just frustrate me to no end. And you know how I solved it? It was the most like Zen realization. The reason that the flies were all coming into my room is because I closed the door to prevent them from trying to come in. If I let the door open to them and let the flies come in and go out as they pleased, then they would come in, they would see that there was no food in there, and then they would fly back out. But because I had the door closed, they would get real curious and they'd see the light under the door crack and they'd come in, and then they would forget how to get back out. And they would all just become trapped in my room because I had this rigid anti-fly mindset, and I kept that door closed, and I tried everything I could to prevent those flies from coming in. But if I just let them come in and leave as soon as they realize there's nothing there, then I got rid of my fly problem just by kind of accepting that, you know, I had to leave my door open to them. And then the more heavy example is just something that I've been going through more recently with having, like, I'm caring for like a terminally ill stepmother, and seeing how powerful her mindset has been into her own like healing journey. I mean, she got very confused with low levels of oxygen and just like high levels of ammonia in the brain, and it was very like was no longer recognizing who I was, and everything was very confusing and overwhelming. And she just became convinced that all of the nurses and the doctors in the hospital were against her and were trying to keep her there, and she was never going to heal as long as they were looking after her. And like, I'm looking at this and I know like they're trying their best to heal her, but she's so convinced that they're not, that it's like her body was refusing to heal. And then we moved her to a rehabilitation facility that to me did not look as good, like with in terms of the kind of care that she would get as compared to the hospital. You know, it's not as attentive. The staff to patient ratio is less. The equipment is less good. But when she got there, it's like the happiest I've ever seen her. She was like, you know, you saved my life getting me out of that hospital, and now I'm here where I can focus on my healing. And like, even though like, you know, if you ask me, like, keep me at the hospital, don't bring me to that place, it did not look that good to me. But to her, it meant everything. That change of mindset like allowed her to like, you know, more openly commit her, like even on a molecular level, to healing. And it's just like seeing like how powerful these changes of mindset can really be. And you know, she's not consciously changing that mindset. We kind of had to play into her mindset by moving her, but just you can see just in those the first example about changing your own mindset and what those revelations can be like, and in the second example just how powerful your mindset can affect you and your entire experience.
Incredible.
Can I jump in?
Please.
Yeah, really nice topic. I feel it's related to the duality also. Like, I feel like when you are classifying yourself into a given like mindset, you kind of labeling, categorizing yourself into some discrete state, and it can be limiting. It can be blocking you from producing some, you know, creative ideas or seeing the world, you know, differently when you are coming from a narrow mindset. I think what helps here is to, you know, trying to reset, quieten down that, you know, default mode network that keeps going there. And like meditation helps, you know, some drugs help to quieten that stuff. And then you sleeping, like that's why sleeping is important, like sufficient, like resetting. And then you have a chance to reclassify yourself into like a different mindset when you like lower down all of those neuronal pathways that are set certain way and put you in a predefined state. Regarding like the freedom of like how you can classify or see yourself or shape the reality, I'm also like listening to the scientific knowledge, which tells us that there is a like different like effective hypothesis that we take into the account to make predictions of what's going to happen. And like, yeah, you can look at the same picture and like single out different things differently from it, like bring them into this discrete state. But I still feel like there is a probability distribution there that certain things are just far less likely to come into the existence, to be actualized, whilst others are bound like closer, like there are equally probable ways of like looking at it and seeing things differently, and then you can like actualize things with a more often that way, like at least once. But where I feel for sure we have a lot of freedom is to actually putting ourselves into those different states of mind, like the happiness, the sadness, like this is how you again see yourself. And I feel like this is our ultimate freedom, like our free will, that we are free to perceive things as good or evil. And you can try to like transfer this reality to other people, like by convincing argument and making them see things a certain way. But it's definitely within our capability of like just perceiving things in a way that, well, things aren't so bad, so I'm actually like quite happy, and like just seeing yourself in this happy state. It's your own personal choice. And yeah, how do you put yourself in there? I feel like it's kind of hard to get from a fixed state to another state when you are in it. So just like going all the way down, when you can make this observation of your state again from like a fresh slate after meditation or medication, then I think that's when your opportunity is to like make that leap to a different state.
Sergey, the scientist, PhD in molecular biology from Cambridge. And I love the
Thanks.
shirt, dude. It's got the moons on it. Yeah, you're shining the luminosity on the situation there. I agree that there's a quantum physics parallel. So Rick, Tom, or Bree, do you have anything we want to add before we go to Anthony to close us out on mindsets?
Yeah, am I on here?
Yeah. Well, we can't see you, but we can hear you. But you're a good-looking island right there. Yeah.
there
There
we
he
go.
is.
So when I came up with my topic last night, I promised I also would have a joke to go with it, and I'd like to share that before we leave. Seems Mr. Peabody and Sherman decide they're going to take the way back, all the way back to where time begins, so they can find out how it really happened. And so they get in there and they go back, and as they come out, there's this old man sitting on the throne, and he's got this little gold box in his lap, and it's got two big buttons on the top. And the first thing they hear is God mumbling, "I wonder what would happen if I pushed the green button."
That's good, man. It's like taking the pill in the Matrix. Boom, and we all popped up. Well done for pressing the green button, God. Cool. Anthony, do you want to close us out with any final thoughts you have on mindsets?
Yeah,
we
I
go
just
to the next topic?
I just want to reflect on something that Sergey cool. Said at the beginning in relation to sort of like these intrinsic parts of ourselves that are malleable, particularly through meditation. My wife last night was asking me about how I kind of, I made a mention of how we were talking all about addiction, and I have a history of addiction and, a number of years sober. But, what was driving the addiction was really this addiction to anxiety, and this fact that, unwanted intrusive thoughts, OCD, whatever you want to call it, was just kind of like something that I had accepted as part of who I was. And, throughout the years of recovery and meditation and, some, various medication and whatever, but meditation being the primary part through a Buddhist lens, there was the recognition that to whom could this stuff possibly even be happening? And that didn't come until about 4 years into the practice. But it was like all of that time I was developing that growth mindset that was intrinsic to personality change, in this recognition of what the fuck even is this, like what it will like. So I over these questions because I'm going off of a million different tangents here at the same time. But how can we bring this into helping those from square one? Like, how can we really like get people on, and fuck, man, I don't want to be the teacher, I don't want to be the guru or whatever, but I do want to lessen people's suffering, and how to sort of encourage that growth mindset. I think meditation is the tool toward these like openings. For example, like my recognition that like I am not, this self that I had constructed that was the anxiety, that was the OCD, doesn't even exist. Like the self doesn't like it's all an illusion. Like the self, this constructed self was illusory. So to whom would this even be happening? That was like where the growth mindset went. I'm just like, wow, okay, cool. Like problem solved, I guess. But anyway, I was like commenting on Sergey's thing, and I was asking another question, and I was somehow wrapping it up. So I apologize. I'm just kind of like providing food for thought for future ruminations on this topic.
Been delicious food, man. A smorgasbord, a little buffet. Thanks, dude. And I believe that your illusory self can learn how to touch type, and that it's going to set self-said illusory self free with much more time, because it's going to be much faster, man. Like it is an adjustment process, but I think it's well worth it, and you can learn anything. So thanks. I think that was a really important thing about mindsets and what we can achieve with our future. We got two more, and we're holding some good time here before 111, before we draw it to a close. We got Grayson and Tom. Let's spin this thing. It's close. It's close. Congrats, Grayson.
All right. So I would like to shout out Anthony and his trying to leave some food for thought, because I've nibbled it right up, and the things that we've all talked about have caused me to want to change my topic. An unprecedented move, but something tells me that the unknown unknowns will still be out there at a later date, and we can address them then. But it was something that we said, no, maybe not in this last topic, but just like before, it was this idea was brought up of algorithms colonizing your consciousness, or this idea of, I think it was conscious sovereignty or conscious autonomy. So that's what I would like to talk about, is this conscious sovereignty, and this whole notion. Because, and I don't necessarily want to get into this whole topic of free will, but it very well might, but I still have no idea what to think of free will. There's so many arguments for and against that I really have no clue what my thoughts are on free will. But in terms of conscious sovereignty, I'm really interested at this idea of being your consciousness being colonized. And I think I understand what is meant by that in terms of like, propaganda or like public relations, with like the algorithm intentionally attempting to unconsciously, like to use unconscious cues to alter your behavior. And this is a very interesting idea to me, because it sounds like it's interesting, because it seems like almost everything then is trying to colonize your consciousness. Because it just what was brought up, and I'm not trying to do like a gotcha moment, Anthony, I promise. I'm not trying to like say you're like hypocritical or anything, but in which I think is a very good-hearted attempt or like good-hearted intent of trying to raise this awareness of people, or like to like teach others to have this kind of awareness or this growth mindset. I mean, I think that's a positive thing to do in the world. but I do think like I'd be curious to hear what is the difference between what you would be doing as a teacher, right? And what the algorithm is doing. I mean, other than like, you know, not the best intentions, doing it for profit versus doing it with honestly like good intention. But it seems like it is a sort of conscious colonization, because you would additionally be using you'd be trying to use every tool in your book like that would you would consider ethical to try to teach this other person, like what was described earlier as the teacher will plant the seed and then it's up to the student to water. But planting that seed I would think would be that consciousness colonialization. I mean, you are planting that seed in somebody's head as a teacher, and you can do that in like a really good teacher is going to be using unconscious tools to their advantage, like with their students. I mean, they're going to be using kind of similar techniques that maybe an algorithm would to try to get their students to pay attention. They're going to be trying to, you know, hack their brain to get them to learn the best. And I think, you know, I'm not sure, maybe you would say that the difference is just one of intention and, you know, having a good, like honest intention versus having, you know, maybe like this like capitalist profit minded intention. But at the same time, and I definitely think I'm in the minority of this, but I've never been bothered by algorithms and social media trying to like learn me, you know, and like trying to, I mean, what I'm trying to think of like, what are the actual negative repercussions for me? Because as I see it, when the algorithm starts learning me better and better and better, it's just going to show me stuff I like. And I like that because it's stuff I like by definition. It seems like a good thing to me. Like, oh, you're going to show me products that I would want or clothes that I would want. Good. I don't have to go shopping. Like, if it's going to show me stuff I want, that's better for me. I mean, so I'm curious about, you know, I mean, it seems like, I guess to summarize, it seems like everything and to some degree is this kind of consciousness, because no man is an island. Everything is going to be affecting you, and a lot of things are intentionally trying to affect you, like interactions you have with people, things you see on TV, the news, like any source of information that you take in from the world is going to have an effect on your consciousness. I mean, it reminds me of, you know, this guy went off into the woods and just lived by himself and didn't interact with anybody for like 30 years until he was like arrested for stealing or something a few years ago. And because he was stealing food, because he was all by himself in the woods. And it was really fascinating hearing him talk about what happened to him with 30 years without interacting with anybody. And he said that his ego and sense of self completely dissolved. He had no inner dialogue at all. You know, it's like it's very animalistic with what you would picture. Your thoughts just become, you know, sensations or images. I mean, you have no internal monologue. That you're not talking to yourself. You don't have this perception of I, me, like my personality, because you don't have other human beings to differentiate yourself from. And you kind of, the subject and object very much blurs in that kind of a state. And it was curious. I mean, he reverted to this state by just being like in essentially solitary, you know, isolation for 30 years. But even, I mean, I guess that's like, would you consider him to be kind of the most consciously autonomous person? Because like, yeah, he just completely unplugged. And is that necessarily a good thing? I guess I'm very fascinated by this idea of this conscious autonomy. Oh, and really quick, there's something that Tom said kind of made me interested, where he said that God knows you better than you know yourself. And that made me think that I think that there are only about 3 things that can know you better than you know you. And that's God, other people, and algorithms. And that is a pretty good group for algorithms to be in. I mean, that's good company. God, the people that love you the most, and algorithms.
Totally, dude. Cool. What are your guys' thoughts?
Just to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sergey. Yeah.
Oh, well, sorry, you go ahead. You started talking first time.
I just wanted to answer Grayson's question there real quickly. in regard to the computer algorithm versus the human, algorithm, which I love that analogy. I think that the only difference is that you meant, like, as you mentioned yourself, a lot of what the social media and YouTube and computer algorithms are vying for, it's all attention. It's all it's the attention economy, right? But the attention is brought to their products, and it's brought to, like you just said, it's showing me products that I want, so that I therefore don't have to like go out and sort through a bunch of stuff, and that's a fantastic thing. But at the same time, I think the big differentiation is the seeds that I may be trying to plant, as I'll just, I won't try to talk around it and, whatever, but a meditation teacher, are the seeds of strengthening one's own attention to be able to like attend to whatever one wants, like whatever is in one's best interest, and not necessarily what's in the best interest of the economy or of the corporation that most of the, but it's a great, I love that, man. It's a great course of inquiry. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I really love this whole meeting. It's like the topics are providing like this field of things, and you can sort of like see different things which you can like want to like actualize and go on in your turn, and then you like laying out another landscape for people, and then they'll like take something from there and like expand that one, and like it's pretty cool how it's all working here. Yeah. Well, so back to what Grayson was saying, I think there's a lot to go about from all that was brought up. So I'll just kind of comment about one specific thing that I noticed was what are the negative sides of having the algorithms like learning you and proposing you stuff that you actually like. I feel like potentially what's the negative, even though Colin thinks negative or positive or good or evil, that's still, a choice that you're making. You can see them as neutral or, but, maybe a negative from some angles is the kind of separation and radicalization of individual people and groups of individuals. I feel that's where like selective ability to present you things that you like, they reduce the capacity of the whole of society to kind of operate on more of a middle ground. Like before, like now, if you like Facebook or Twitter or even like Google News on your phone, like when you like swipe right, it gives you like that feed of if you use an Android, like the algorithm presents you stuff that you're interested about, or like what you're clicking on. And in the past, when it was like one newspaper that people were reading, it would have to try to strike the middle ground to attract a lot of readers. So it's still focusing your attention as a reader on something that is relatable by a larger group of people than when you are just selectively presented things that are fitting, your models in your consciousness. So I think that's what's going on. And like I noticed this recently myself, like back in the day, when music was like on the radio and in the charts from like a couple of sources, like I felt like I was listening the same music with my friends, and now the Spotify like makes 6 playlists for me that are like suited to specific like moods that I might have, but it's all the music that I like in all of the 6 ones, and I'm listening to new music, like the music that is made 2021. I'm in those playlists, but I can't talk to any of my colleagues about it because they're listening to completely different stuff. Like they have no idea about this music that I'm listening to. To me, it's the whole world. There's so much. Like opening up the app, all of this new performers, new music, like playlists and all. It's just completely not even like on the radar of my friends. And I found that was a little different, back in the day. I don't know if you want to classify it good or bad. This is what happened in cosmologically. Things are becoming farther apart from each other, and communication between us and distant galaxies, it sort of dwindles out. Eventually, it's just going to be like that group of matter that's united by the common center of gravity. So us, Andromeda, Magellan Clouds, and that's pretty much it. And so I feel like in the space of information, as humans, we're also getting farther and farther separated from each other. So it's becoming harder to bridge those gaps. And I think that's maybe where the algorithms are pushing us to.
Wow, what an awesome link from the microcosm to the macrocosm there. Bree, you had your hand up.
It was just a piggyback off of what you just said, Sergey. So I think, I don't even know what to think about it all, but it's like social media and algorithms and stuff. It's like, so, and I just asked Josh this morning, I was like, is it really like, how much is it about us anyway? Like me, and social media is just like, ooh, this sweater. Oh, look how good you look in a filter. Oh, look at you, look, you. And the more I focus on myself, me personally, the more like depressed I feel just looking at myself every day, me. So it's like, is it really about us anyway? And how society is really trying to make it all about us. It's like, how cool are we anyway? I don't know. Those are just thoughts that I have.
I think you're pretty cool. Yeah, nice one.
Thanks.
Thanks. I got you.
Convince myself that.
Oh, just keep listening to me then. Yeah. And Grayson, I'll say that I am the same as you, man. I like it that it customizes my algorithms for products, but that's a different thing than it colonizing my consciousness. If it's serving me, then that's cool. But if it's making me serve it, which I think actually it is, then that's a slightly different thing altogether. Who else has some thoughts? Tom, Rick, Anthony. Tom.
Was free will part of that, Grayson, or was that a previous conversation?
I was just saying, like, I mean, I was basically just disclaimer that this topic might lead into discussions of free will, and I was just stating that I personally just am so confused about that topic and have no idea what I think about free will. So I was just saying, if it goes on there, I don't know how much I'll add, but I can certainly listen.
Okay, well, I hate to be always referencing Eckhart Tolle, but I don't want to pretend that the thoughts are my own original. He says that until you gain control of your mind, there's absolutely no free will. And then there is, to a progressive degree, I think he meant. It fascinates me that when people who ayahuasca DMT experiences, they sometimes meet Mother Gaia and they have a quick life review, and then they decide why they really came here. But even then, after that, the tendency, I think, is to become lost in it again. Our thoughts, our demons, good thoughts, bad thoughts, come at us, and our fears and our grace, it's like we've no control. It's just one damn thought after another. So free will for a moment, when we remember, oh yes, my mission, and then we're lost in the melee again. The Dalai Lama had a chat with Howard Cutler, the psychiatrist, in a wonderful book, The Art of Happiness, I think, and Cutler says, Your Holiness, isn't each thought just a biochemical reaction, product of a biochemical reaction? The Dalai Lama smiled for a moment and said, maybe it's the other way around. But regardless, we're streams of thought, mindsets, and so on. But then, guess what? I've been coming to these meetings for about a year, and it's so gratifying to see Anthony and Sergey arguing over the microphone today. You first, no, you first, no. I didn't see that kind of thing a year ago. There's been all of us have progressed. What made the Native Americans so incredibly wise, I think, partly was when they had their powwows. They didn't have Zoom, but they had this discipline that one guy spoke and all the others listened. And when we're listening, we're nearly always giving. James Redfield in the Celestine Vision and Prophecy puts it beautifully. When you're giving, and the ultimate therapist, you know, Anthony, look at those glasses shining. The ultimate therapist is a silent one, silent and listen, same letters jumbled up. The ultimate therapist, the ultimate giver, the ultimate comedian too, is silent. That's when we're just pure gift, giving. You guys and Brianna here today, so much more unusual in guys than in women. When one person is speaking, you give. And I was so gratified, Anthony, you're so focused, and the jumble that came out, I thought, oh, I do that all the time. But possibly because I'm so unused to the feast of attention that all this stuff comes out together through the keyhole. And it's gratifying to see it happens to other people. We get high on the gift of the energy from others. So that in itself, I think, is incredibly important, that we've all learned that when we give, we receive, and that we can give, and the transformations happen then. I think that perhaps one explanation of free will, the paradox, is that maybe we totally pre-agreed to get totally lost in this, to be the victim of one thought after another, grace, demons and all, and to come out the other and say, oh, wow. And the other explanation could be that, as Tolle says, once we step into meditation, we put the shift in neutral. And when we're in neutral, we're in superposition. And all these almost infinite universes are opening up. The only limit is, can I really believe that one's real? And then you zoom into that one, then you get lost in that one again. But ultimately, maybe one day we can do it, to keep a little bit of neutral all the time, and say, a little bit of fluidity, and say, a little bit of me is not totally lost in the stream at the moment. A little bit is aware of me playing this role, and that when we're there, then we are kind of exercising free will. But all addictions, they say, ultimately are addictions to thought. And as long as our thoughts are pulling us along, we're lost and there's no free will. But the moment that someone theoretically, and I can't do it, when we at any moment can say, whoa, stop dead our thoughts and say, okay, what do I want to think about, if anything now? Then we've regained some degree of free will. And I guess that's where we're all going. And to see you guys fighting over you first, no, you first means you were in the presence of two masters there. You're both saying, what you're going to say is at least as important as what I'm going to say. That is so beautiful. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Round of applause. Yeah. And what you just said is so beautiful too, man. And we want to hear more. So Grayson, we'll come to you to close us off on this topic. And then we'll move on to the final one of Tom.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for sharing. I thought this was a really interesting topic, and it kind of synergized a lot of the ideas that we had touched on earlier with like social media and everything. And I thought, Sergey, that was a great like explanation. And you know, it's difficult for me to see that as purely a bad thing. And I'm not saying that you do either, but to recognize it as a double-edged sword of, you know, because on the one hand, the ability to be an individual and to have you to be unique is probably, you know, higher than ever before in human history. I mean, like, you know, to discover what you like and what makes you you, and to like these algorithms are feeding into that, and but to recognize that it is a double-edged sword, and that there is something that's lost in that, and that, you know, it is alienating, and there is a little bit of shared identity that is lost. I mean, if you become this heightened individual, you've become atomized from the rest of society to a certain degree, and it's harder to identify with others or to relate, maybe. And that is a huge problem that, you know, is in so much of society right now. And yeah, I mean, thinking about how that kind of alienation can play into this idea of conscious autonomy, and if there's any relation between like the idea of like being your own person, being your own consciousness, not feeding into these sort of cultural dogmas that maybe permeate where we live, and these ideas that it feels like, you know, you're being pressured to think like, or, we always have seen, these sort of dystopian images of, you go into school and everyone's all radically different and individual. And then here's your cookie cutter box, and everyone comes out of school and they all look the same and they all think the same. And, that to me is also this idea of conscious colonization in like what is similar to the algorithm. But at the same time, I mean, education is a good thing. I mean, I'm not saying it's not. So it's like finding this kind of balance and recognizing these kind of push-pull things as double-edged swords potentially, and finding how to balance them is a real tricky act. But I think these kinds of conversations are like really thought-provoking and important, and kind of like being aware that, yes, sometimes your interactions with people are planting seeds in their heads. And sometimes like you might have the power to do this kind of conscious colonization, and like recognizing that so that you're not doing that kind of thing unintentionally. And that could be bad. I mean, if you recognize that you could have like that kind of influence on somebody, I mean, it's like with great power comes great responsibility, right? So you got to kind of like being aware that no man is an island. I don't really think that any consciousness is completely autonomous. And so recognizing that, and recognizing that we are all this kind of web of these different influences, and like, I mean, it's very confusing, but it's also like very fruitful for some pretty cool changes, and in mindsets and the world. So I'll just end it there.
What a good place to end, man. I love it. Yeah, this is so deep. And ultimately, can we make any mistakes about what colonizes us? Anyway, we're going to come to Tom's topic, but I do want to spin the wheel for you, Tom. Just for you, man. You can make no mistake on what this wheel is going to land on. Tom, go ahead, man. Tell us about.
Okay. Shakespeare famously had his Hamlet say, "Nothing's either good nor bad, but thinking makes it so." So Grayson mentioned someone with born with vision defects, and they need to have it corrected. And I sent a little link to that famous Canadian guy, I've forgotten his name, who learned echolocation. I think he had his second eye removed at 17 months, and he learned that he could see with his tongue. So that was transcendence rather than change, I guess. Jill Bolte Taylor talks about her brain anomaly, and in parenthesis in her talk, she says, an anomaly, we anatomists say, is when it occurs in less than 30% of the population. I guess she means the sample population. If it weren't for her AVM, her arteriovenous malformation, it's very hard to see how she could possibly have had her stroke of insight. I've listened to and watched her talk and read her book once. Every time I go to her talk, it's to find some other mistake. She talks about schizophrenia as being a brain disease, and then she goes on to say that we have two minds, two brains, dare I say, she says, two personalities, a left brain and a right brain. She defines, it seems, schizophrenia in her brother's case as he can take his dreams and they do not become part of our common shared reality. Instead, they become delusion. What is it about my brain that I can take mine and make them part of a common shared reality? To the extent that she doesn't make her great dream of sharing the ability to stand into the right hemisphere part of our common shared reality, if by her definition, one might say she is schizophrenic, delusional, psychotic herself. I wouldn't go that far. But there's so many anomalies and paradoxes in her talk. And yet, like any apparent mistake, I think our mistakes are just to draw our attention to things. Bohr said, thank goodness to have met a paradox, now we're making progress. When we see an anomaly, a paradox, a contradiction, or something, a glitch, something out of the pattern, it draws our attention. There's a crack in everything, that's where the light gets in. If that poem, Desiderat, is right about the universe, no doubt, is unfolding as it should, which I think it is, then every mistake I made in one universe in A was absolutely necessary for that unfolding. So I like to try and remind myself that in a cosmic way, in a divine sense, there are no mistakes, and duality is an illusion, but a very real illusion, because illusions have their own reality, but it's temporary. And at any moment, theoretically, at any moment I wish to enough, I can step out of that. And when I do step out, I can decide to step back in, or I can fall back in, or as I step consciously back into my world, I can try and retain a bit of that other world with me. So, you know, Josh, the frontispiece of A Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Tolle kind of jokes that if any of us land in paradise, our ego would immediately say, I don't deserve this yet. And it might also say, is this as good as it gets, or this is too good? We argue with it. There's a beautiful line way back in Paint Your Dragon. Lee Marvin sings the song. He says, when I get to heaven, hitch me to a tree, or I'll go wandering, and you know where I will be. So, Josh, I think when you landed in paradise, your demons kind of came to rescue you from paradise. And I think we all do that. And eventually, hopefully, through the grace of each other's wisdom and attention, we say, you know what, I'm kind of ready for the paradise, and I've maybe suffered enough. Thank you very, very much indeed. And I think Anthony and I think every single one of you, Mr. Rick, with your beautiful message and your gorgeous song, I would love to hear it to music. Grayson, Brianna, Josh, I think you're all ultimate therapists here, and I feel the grace and benefit of your therapy every week. And my 5 minutes is nearly up. But you reminded me that whenever I'm beating myself up or saying there is a mistake, there's something wrong here, allowing my little demons back in, it's because I've forgotten the therapy that each of you guys has so lovingly, and girl, has so lovingly given me. And thank you. That's my 5 minutes if anyone wants to add.
That's 5 minutes of pure poetry, my man. That was sweet. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Tom, to begin, for your for your eloquence, and just your, you know, there was enough within that 5 minutes for me to unpack for the rest of the weekend or year maybe. Yeah, so thank you. Love listening to you. And you know, what I could fall back on in regard to that question of mistakes is the idea of dependent co-arising in Buddhism, which, you know, as best I understand it, which is probably minimally, but it's that you know, the 10,000 things, you know, essentially infinite causes and conditions that have preceded every moment of the unfolding now, were arranged in such a way as to, and this is getting back into the idea of free will, but to more or less guarantee an outcome. And you know, I've mulled this over. I've gone through all of my past regrets and mistakes, and it's, you know, I've done all the whole like self-criticism, beating myself up for all the things. And there's a part of myself that recognizes, had I been able to act differently, given those 10,000 causes and conditions that led up to exactly where I was emotionally, psychologically, physically, neurologically, you know, the balance of my gut biome, the exact, you know, combination of outside influences, not to mention all of my past conditioning. And it goes out like this, like this web that eventually encompasses everything. Had I been able to act differently at that omega point of like, here it is, like, here's the choice point, of course I would have like acted differently in the ways in which I continue to criticize myself for. Likewise, in the ways that I'm proud of, and the ways that I'm like, oh, good job, dude. Yeah, you made the right choice there. Same deal. So I really don't know that there's such thing as a mistake, and I'm more or less totally convinced that there's no such thing as free will. But having had that recognition, we can move with more mindfulness, and we can move with more deliberateness, and we can kind of play the game of free will to our advantage, even if it doesn't exist. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone for sharing. Honestly, this is like another one of those topics that we could just chew on forever because it's really fascinating. But it's like two quick things. I first want to just focus on like, what is a mistake? And to my mind, a mistake has to involve an intention that is then not fulfilled. And so this is something like, you know, if you intend to shoot a basket in the hoop and you miss, that was a mistake because your intention was not fulfilled. And so this is actually a very, very cool way to think about it, because I think it really connects both the atheists and the believers in this, because there's no mistakes in either paradigm. If you believe in God, like, then everything that happens would have been like, you know, God's not making a mistake here. So nothing that's occurring is like against God's intention necessarily, I wouldn't think. But that's just my limited theological understanding. But from the atheistic point of view, there is no intention. So there are no mistakes because there's no intention that wouldn't have been fulfilled, because, yeah, exactly. So whether or not you have God's intention doesn't make mistakes, or you have no intention, there are no mistakes because there's nothing that, you know, can be, there's no intentionality to any of it. So I think that there's a broad chance for like unification in this idea that there are no mistakes. And then the last thing, because I've been picking up on this trend of, which I would like to describe as like this, you know, humans are very good at constructing hypotheticals. Like, we're super good at thinking, man, what if I had just done this differently? What if I had just said it differently than that? But to what Tom was saying, like, that's not real. Like, those hypotheticals are not real. And it really makes you question, to what degree are they even real? Like, you might think that the probability if you flip a coin is 50% heads or 50% tails. But once you flip it, the probability was 100% tails. Like, you might think that, oh, what is the probability that I'm living this life I have right now? All the different coincidences and things that had to happen just right to make it to where this is the exact life. That's got to be 1 in a trillion. Well, no, the answer is 1 in 1. It's 100% likely that happened because you're here right now experiencing it. I mean, it's this kind of, is a very interesting notion and a very interesting crosstalk maybe between very radically different worldviews, but functionally might come out with a similar outcome of, you know, there are no mistakes.
Awesome, dude. Rick or Sergey?
Yeah, awesome topic. And yeah, love everybody's like the speeches. It's like music, you know, you just like,
It is.
or like surfing, you know, just like gliding on the surface of information and like single out those things and like ponder at them from a vantage point. Fantastic. But the free will, yeah, fascinating topic. Maybe we should have a whole thing on free will one day. I feel that there is, in like between real numbers, there is an infinite number of real numbers between any two real numbers. So I think there's a lot to squeeze in still into that topic between like ideas, like the ultimate freedom, although I still, well, maybe let's say ultimate freedom, or you're not really deciding anything, everything is predetermined. I think what fits in between there is that everything is predetermined, but there are like a multiverse of possibilities. Like you could imagine, like there's this vision in quantum mechanic interpretation called multiple worlds interpretation. So like when a measurement happens, when you actualize something, you actually end up in a branch of a possible multiverse where this particular thing is happening that way. So I feel that everything is predetermined, but we don't know yet which of the possible predetermined routes we will navigate. And there is still a question whether the realm of possibilities that is out there, is it just many, like gazillion of dimensions, or is it really an infinite thing? But in either way, we don't really know like where we're going to end up, like traveling that path. And we're making our observations from the data that or like our judgments or discretization from the continuous flow of data that comes at us through our sensory organs. But and I think every time we're doing exactly that we want to be doing. And also, you guys know I equate consciousness and matter, but I still feel that it's unknown how this completely deterministic computer will unfold, because there's actually a myriad of branches in which it can be unfolded, and you actually have to be present through all of those computations to really see which way it ultimately goes. That's how I tend to think of this, but we can talk more about this on future occasions.
Love it, man. Well, I'm glad I'm in this branch with all of you guys. This is great. What about you, Rick? Do you have any final thoughts on this before we come back to Tom to close us up?
Are we on here? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that when it comes to good versus bad, or it's not a heads or tail thing. There's no hard line, because sometimes we learn fastest and best from what we see that we don't want to be. Setting goals. Oh yeah, I want to be a good guy. I want people to think I'm a saint. But sometimes, it's like Disney figured this out a long time ago. You got to have an evil person in the movie, so people know what they don't want to be like.
Wow. Well, my brother just said something to me about that this last week, and my daughter over the last month said, "Oh, but there was no bad guy in this movie. It was boring." I think that's spot on, Rick. Why don't you round us off there, Tom?
Thanks. I try and console myself that when I have been an idiot or an ASSHOLE in public or in front of anybody, mostly I haven't realized it myself, of course, but the guy looking at me has, or gal, and I'm sure they must have needed that reminder of, oh my God, am I like that sometimes? I've certainly benefited from other people making spectacles of themselves. Having said that, there's a TED talk by Brian Stevenson, and one night he didn't have enough sleep and he went in, he was rude to the judge the next day. I don't know if you know that talk. And things went beautifully because of it. So his ego, his ego, loss of composure was used as well. So Shakespeare as well, I think in Henry V, there is some good in this evil. Everything eventually comes to light. So sorry, so where am I? Thanks all of you people for reminding me that ultimately my mistakes may well have been my very, very, very best work, my motes in someone else's eyes or whatever they are. So thank you guys so much, all of you guys, and Bree if she's there. Thank you.
Love it. You guys, wow, what a gathering of minds. This is just incredible. And thank you all really so much for being here today and for sharing from your heart and from your minds. And the next time that we shall gather will be 11/20, so November 20th. And then with that, we are going to cruise. We're going to be meeting on the beach today. It's actually been the shift. It's getting a little bit chillier in Southern California. So this will be our last beach gathering until things warm up, until the light reemerges. But we know that the light will still be here online as we transcend and navigate through these algorithms. So guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate your minds and your hearts, and I'll catch you next time. You.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all. Aslan's Rainbow, inspiration for transformation. Watching how these branches of possibilities unfold, and I'm so glad that you're here with us as this one unfolds. And I hope it unfolds infinite potential over this coming month. And we'll catch you guys next time on Saturday, close to the full moon. Cheerio.